the door I've kept closed. God, tonight I bring you to the edge of the room in my heart that I have kept locked for so long. You know the one with no name on the door, no windows for the light to enter, no footsteps echoing down its hall. No one knows about this place but you. Even I forget it sometimes, distracting myself with work, with laughter, with plans, with pretending that I am just like everyone else, healed, whole, untouched. But the truth is, there are parts of me I have never let anyone see. There are moments, memories, hurts I have hidden away so deeply that even I am afraid to touch them. I've learned to keep this door closed, to slide past it in the daylight, to stack boxes and busy days against it, to never turn the handle, never let the air in. Sometimes when the world is quiet and I can't outrun my thoughts, I hear the silence behind that door, and it presses against my ribs like a secret trying to get out. God, tonight I stand here, trembling. My hand is on the doorknob. My heart is pounding because I know you are already here. You have always been waiting, just outside the locked room, just beyond my fear. There are so many reasons I've kept it closed. Shame that chokes me silent. Fear that if anyone ever knew what happened, what I felt, how much I still hurt, they would turn away. Fear that even you would turn away. Sometimes I tell myself it's better to keep it all hidden, to let the wounds scab over in the dark, to keep up appearances, to carry the ache alone. But it never really goes away, does it? It seeps out in quiet moments, in the way I flinch when someone gets too close, in the way I laugh too loud, work too hard, say I'm fine when I'm not. This door, God, it is heavy with secrets. It creaks with regrets. It bears the fingerprints of my childhood, the echoes of every time I was told to toughen up, to get over it, to never cry, to never need. It bears the silent weight of all the things I never said, never asked for, never let myself feel. I am tired, God. Tired of guarding this room. Tired of pretending the door isn't there. Tired of being afraid of my own pain. Tonight, in this whispered prayer, I dare to invite you in. I let my hand rest on the cold doorknob, and I ask for your presence, gentle, patient, unhurried, to stand with me in the hallway of my heart. Will you wait with me, God? Will you be my courage when my own voice shakes? Will you help me unlock what I have always kept hidden? Not to force me, not to rush me, but to remind me that there is nothing in this room too ugly for your love, too broken for your healing, too shameful for your mercy. As I breathe in this silence, I realize that I do not have to open the door all at once. Maybe tonight, I just need to acknowledge it is there. Maybe tonight, I need to know that you are patient, that you do not rush broken things. Let this be enough for now, to stand together at the threshold, to know that I am not alone with the things I keep locked away. Let me feel your gentle hand over mine, steadying me, comforting me, reminding me that with you, no door is ever too heavy, no secret too dark, no pain too old to be seen and loved. Stay with me here, God, as I gather the courage to begin. Hold my fear. Hold my trembling heart. Hold this locked room until I am ready to let the light in. Amen.
Why I stayed silent. God,
There are so many reasons why I never spoke aloud the things that broke me. I carry them like small stones in my pockets, heavy, always with me, never seen. Sometimes I convince myself that silence is strength, that telling my story will only make the pain too real, that if I say the words, the world might crumble, or the people I love will see me differently. So I have learned to keep quiet, to press my lips together and swallow my own suffering, hoping it might dissolve with time. I stayed silent because I was taught to be strong. Somewhere along the way, I absorbed the message that needing comfort is weakness, that voicing pain is self-pity, that my wounds are burdens best hidden from view. I believed that others were already struggling with their own storms, that adding mine would tip the scales. So I carried the ache alone, smiling so others wouldn't worry, shrinking my pain so it wouldn't take up space. I stayed silent because I was afraid of what people would think, afraid of being called dramatic or sensitive or broken, afraid that if I spoke, the floodgates would open and I would never be able to close them again. There were moments when I wanted to cry out, when my chest ached with the urge to confess everything. But the words stuck in my throat, trapped behind years of practice. I stayed silent because sometimes the world punishes honesty. I have seen what happens when secrets are exposed, the way faces change, the way trust can shatter, the way people can walk away from pain they do not want to witness. So I hid, God. I became an expert at tucking my heart behind my ribs, building walls with laughter and busy days, always telling myself, it's better this way. No one gets hurt. But the truth is, the one who gets hurt the most is me. My silence did not erase the pain. It only made the ache grow sharper in the dark. It left me alone with questions I never dared to ask, with memories I never let anyone hold. God, you have always seen through my silence. You have heard every prayer I could not form, every sigh, every sleepless night, every "I'm fine" that was a silent scream for help. You have never turned away, never shamed me for being too much, never told me to get over it. Tonight, I confess the cost of silence. I lay it before you, the years I lost pretending, the comfort I missed by never speaking, the love I denied myself by believing my wounds were unworthy of attention. Help me believe that my story matters, that my pain deserves a voice, that I am allowed to be real, even if my voice trembles, even if my tears fall. Teach me that there is holiness in honesty, healing in being seen, mercy in letting myself be known. If all I can offer tonight is a whisper, let it be enough. God, sit with me in the quiet. Translate my silence into your understanding. Show me that even the things I never say are safe with you, and that one day I may find the courage to let someone else in. Amen.
The day I learned to hide my pain. God, I remember there was a day I became different. I cannot always name the exact moment, but there was a turning, a dimming, a sudden heaviness where innocence used to live. Before that day, I was unafraid to cry, unashamed to reach out for comfort, bold enough to speak my hurts out loud. Pain was simple then, felt and shown, met with arms that opened and gentle voices that soothed. But then it changed. Maybe it was a harsh word, A mocking laugh, the roll of someone's eyes, or the sound of the world telling me to toughen up, to stop making a fuss, to be strong for everyone else. Maybe it was the disappointment in a parent's sigh, the dismissal from a friend who didn't understand, the quiet moment when I saw that my tears were unwelcome. On that day, something closed inside me. I learned that not all pain is meant to be seen, that some feelings are inconvenient, too messy for the daylight, too risky to trust in the open. I tucked my pain behind my smile. I learned to swallow tears before they could fall. I taught myself to nod, to say, "I'm okay," even when my chest felt heavy and my heart wanted to scream. I became careful with my truth, measuring every word, testing every emotion, wondering if it was safe, wondering if it was allowed. God, that was the day I started to hide, not just my pain, but pieces of myself. I believed that being strong meant being silent, that being lovable meant being easy, uncomplicated, never a burden. But tonight, as I remember that day, I see how much I lost in learning to hide. I lost softness, the gift of being comforted, the freedom to feel without fear. I am still searching for that child in me, the one who trusted arms to hold her, who believed tears could be wiped away, who was certain that pain could be spoken and still loved. God, help me remember her. Help me unlearn the lessons of hiding. Help me find safety in your presence, to trust that I can show you every wound, every fear, every ache without shame. If tonight all I can do is remember, then let my memory be a gentle beginning. Let me grieve what was lost on that day, and let me hope for the day I will not need to hide again. God, hold that younger version of me. Hold her. Hold her disappointment, her confusion, her lonely heart. And hold me now, still aching, still hoping, still longing to be seen. Amen.
God, did you notice my tears? God, I have always wondered, did anyone ever notice when my voice grew quiet, when my laughter faded at the edges, when my eyes looked away so no one could see the shimmer of tears I swallowed? There have been nights when tears fell without sound, when I pressed my face into the pillow and let myself unravel, just for a moment, because I knew by morning I would need to tuck it all away again, wipe my face, and meet the world with practiced calm. Sometimes I look back and see a younger me, shoulders shaking in a dark room, hands pressed tight against my mouth to keep the sobs inside, begging for someone, anyone, to come and notice, to ask, to care. But the world was busy. People were distracted. The moment always passed. And I learned to make my pain invisible, to hold my breath until the ache receded, to become the kind of person whose wounds left no trace on the surface. Yet in all those hidden moments, a question echoed inside me. God, Did you see? Did you notice when no one else did? Did my tears matter to you even when I could not let them matter to myself? I want to believe that you were there, in the quiet, in the shadows, beside me as I wept for things I could never explain. That you counted every tear, even the ones that never fell, even the ones that dried before they reached my skin. Tonight, I bring you my tears. The ones I cried alone, the ones I choked back, the ones I still carry in the silent places of my heart. I offer them not as weakness, but as proof that I am still soft inside, still capable of feeling, still hoping to be seen. Let my tears be safe with you. Let them be noticed, honored, held. Teach me, God, that in your presence, not a single tear is wasted. Not one is overlooked. Not one is cause for shame. May I rest in the comfort that you have witnessed every moment I thought was invisible, and that in your eyes, every hidden ache is worthy of compassion. God, hold my tears tonight. Let me feel, for once, that I am seen. Amen.
Unspoken betrayals. God, there are wounds I have carried for so long that I barely remember how it felt to be unhurt. Not all pain is loud. Some of it is quiet, born in the silence after a door closes, in the distance that grows between people who once promised to stay. Some betrayals come with shouts and slammed doors, but others arrive quietly, in a friend who drifts away without explanation, in a promise broken by someone I trusted, in a secret told to the wrong person, in love that turns cold while I am still reaching out. I never spoke of these betrayals, not out of pride, but out of fear. Fear of being dismissed, fear of being told it wasn't so bad, fear that my pain was not real because I had no proof but the ache in my chest. So I kept the wounds hidden, tucked away where no one could touch them. I let the memories settle like dust in the corners of my soul, hoping that if I never spoke their names, they would lose their power. But they did not fade. Instead, they taught me to be cautious, to hold my heart at arm's length, to question kindness, to flinch at the thought of trust. God, you know every betrayal, even the ones I dared not acknowledge. You see the way my spirit tenses when love is offered, the way my hands shake when I try to reach out again. Tonight, I bring you the betrayals I never voiced, the ones that made me doubt my own worth, the ones that left me feeling foolish for believing, the ones that taught me to expect too little from others and even less from myself. Help me, God, to see that my pain is not a weakness, that my wounds are not a failure. Let your presence be the place where I do not have to hide what happened, where I can grieve for what was lost without shame. Show me that you understand the language of silence, that you know every word I could not say, every story I locked away, every time I forgave too quickly just to make the pain stop. Hold me, God, in the places where I was betrayed. Heal what others broke. Teach me to trust again, not blindly, but bravely, with the wisdom that comes from being known and loved by you. And if all I can do tonight is bring you my unspoken betrayals, let that be enough.
Let your love reach the wounds I never thought could heal. Amen.
Wounds from words left unsaid. God, sometimes the deepest wounds are not from what was said to me, but from all the things that were never spoken. There are empty spaces inside me where comfort should have lived, where a gentle word, a simple "I'm sorry," or a single "I see you, I care" would have made all the difference. I remember times when my pain hung in the air like a question no one wanted to answer. How I wished for someone to notice, to ask me why I was quiet, to say, "Tell me everything," to reach for my hand and promise I wasn't alone. Instead, there was silence, sometimes awkward, sometimes sharp, sometimes so heavy it felt like a stone pressing down on my chest. I waited for words that never came, for explanations, for forgiveness, for a parent's pride, for a friend's reassurance, for a lover's understanding. I longed for someone to say, "You matter to me," or "I'm here if you want to talk," or even just, "It's okay to feel what you feel." The words never arrived, and in their absence, I wrote my own stories. Stories of not being enough, of being too much, of asking for too little, of never truly being seen. God, you know every longing in my heart, every hope that someone would notice, every ache that came from being overlooked. You know the conversations I played out in my head, the speeches I whispered to the darkness, the questions I kept asking, hoping the silence would break. Tonight, I bring you these wounds from words left unsaid. I lay them in your hands, the apologies I never heard, the comfort I never received, the love that never spoke its name. Hold me in the ache of what I missed. Help me to see that my worth is not measured by what others failed to give. Speak your truth into the hollow places. Fill the silence with your gentle presence, your unwavering love. Remind me, God, that you are not silent, that you have always been whispering words of kindness and belonging over my life, even when the world grew quiet. Let your voice be the balm for my wounds, the words that finally reach me, the promise that I am never alone. Amen.
Hurts from those I loved most. God, some wounds are sharpest because they come from hands I trusted, from voices that once soothed me, from faces I longed to make proud, from hearts I believed would never hurt mine. It is a strange and lonely ache to be wounded by those I love most, not always in anger or cruelty, but sometimes in silence, in misunderstanding, in the careless things said in passing, or the important things left unsaid. I have been disappointed by parents, let down by siblings, betrayed by friends, misunderstood by partners. People who, in another moment, were my greatest source of comfort, and in a breath became the reason I could not sleep at night. I have tried to make excuses for them, to convince myself they didn't mean it, to believe that if I just loved harder, just forgave faster, the pain would fade away. But some hurts linger. An absence at a moment when I needed them most, a word that cut deeper because it came from someone I adore, a cold shoulder, a broken promise, a look that said, "You're too much," or worse, "You're not enough." God, I carry these wounds in silence because I am afraid to lose what I still have, afraid that naming my pain will make the distance grow, afraid that asking for more is asking too much, afraid of finding out that the love I need is not the love I am given. Help me tonight to be honest with you, to place every disappointment, every bruise left by love in your hands. Remind me that even when human love falls short, your love does not. That you understand my longing to belong, to be chosen, to be held without conditions. Let me grieve the wounds from those I love most without growing bitter or closed. Teach me that my pain is not a betrayal of them, but an invitation to bring my true self into your healing presence. If tonight I can only whisper my sorrow, let that whisper be a prayer you hear. Hold both me and those I love, and mercy and hope and the gentle mending that only you can bring. Amen.
The loneliness of not being chosen. God, there is a quiet ache that follows me into empty rooms, the loneliness of not being chosen. I have felt it in the way someone's eyes scan past me, in the invitation that never came, in the plans made without me, in the seat left empty at the table where I hoped my presence would matter. It is the pain of watching others be picked first, of hearing laughter that doesn't include my name, of being the afterthought, the backup plan, the one remembered when everyone else has gone home. Sometimes it is subtle, a friend too busy, a parent too distracted, a lover too preoccupied with another. Other times it is sharp, being left out, passed over, rejected outright. God, this loneliness has burrowed deep into my spirit. It whispers that I am not special, not necessary, not worth the risk or the fight. I try to convince myself that it doesn't matter, that I am strong, independent, better off alone. But there is a child inside me who longs to be chosen, longs to be someone's first call, someone's reason to stay. Tonight, I bring you this longing. I bring you the emptiness that settles when the world spins on without me, when my place in someone's life is uncertain or easily replaced. God, help me to believe that my worth is not determined by the choices of others. Show me that being overlooked by people does not mean I am overlooked by you. Choose me tonight, God. Remind me that I am wanted in your presence, that I am not forgotten, not a mistake, not invisible. Fill the spaces left by human absence with the warmth of your love. Let me feel, even for a moment, what it is to be truly seen, truly valued, truly chosen by the one who knows me most. Amen.
Broken promises I carried alone. God, there are promises I once clung to, like lifelines. Words spoken with sincerity, eyes shining with hope. Vows made in moments when everything felt possible. I'll always be here. You can trust me. I won't let you down. I promise. How my heart wanted to believe, to build a future on those words, to rest in the comfort of knowing I mattered enough for someone to stay. But time passed, circumstances changed, and people drifted. Some promises faded quietly, like autumn leaves swept away on the wind. Others were broken suddenly, shattering with the sound of goodbye, leaving me clutching pieces of something I thought would last. I didn't know what to do with the ache, so I carried it alone. I told myself it wasn't that important, that I should have expected it, that needing someone to keep their word was asking too much. But the truth is, every broken promise left a mark, a crack in my trust, a question about my own worth, a fear that no one is really as steady as they seem. God, you know the weight of every hope that crumbled, every expectation unmet, every secret disappointment I tried to bury. Tonight, I lay these broken promises at your feet, the ones that haunt me in the quiet, the ones I never grieved out loud. Teach me, God, that it is not weak to hope, not foolish to believe, not shameful to long for loyalty. Let your faithfulness mend the places where human words failed me. Remind me that your promises do not break, that your "I am with you always" is not an empty phrase, but a vow written on my soul. Help me forgive those who let me down, not to excuse the pain, but to set myself free from carrying what is no longer mine. Fill the void left by broken promises with the certainty of your love, constant, unwavering, the one thing I can trust when everything else falls away. Let me rest in the assurance that I am never truly alone. Amen. Pretending to be strong. God, there is a weight that comes with pretending to be strong. Day after day, I wake up, put on my armor, and step into a world that seems to demand resilience, a steady smile, a sure voice, and unshakable presence. People depend on me. They look to me for steadiness, for comfort, for answers. So I become what they need, the reliable one, the listener, the helper, the one who says, "I'm fine," even when my soul aches for rest. But the truth is, sometimes I am anything but strong. Sometimes the effort of holding it together leaves me weary in places no one sees. Behind every "I'm okay," there is a trembling heart, a silent plea for someone to notice how hard it is to keep standing. I have learned to swallow my tears for fear they will make others uncomfortable, to laugh when I want to cry, to offer comfort even when I desperately need it myself. God, tonight I am tired of pretending. I am tired of carrying the illusion of strength while feeling so fragile within. You know every crack beneath my armor, every moment I forced myself to push through, every weakness I tried to hide. You see the cost of always being the strong one. Let me be honest with you now. Let me set down my burdens, my shields, my brave face. Remind me that I do not have to impress you with strength I do not possess, that I am loved in my exhaustion, embraced in my weakness, welcome when I have nothing left to give. God, teach me the courage to be real with you, to admit that I am not always okay, to confess that sometimes I just want to be held, to find in you a refuge where I can finally rest. Tonight, I surrender the need to pretend. Let my tears be my prayer, my trembling, my song, my honesty, my act of trust. And as I lay down the mask of strength, let me find a deeper strength in you, the kind that does not come from striving, but from simply being yours. Hold me, God, as I am. Let me rest. Let me breathe. Let me be enough, even in my weakness. Amen.
The ache of being unnoticed. God, there's an ache that hides beneath my calm, a longing that started in childhood. On nights when I sat quietly at the dinner table, fork tracing circles in my food, waiting for someone to ask why I'd gone so quiet, why my eyes kept drifting to the window instead of the faces around me. No one ever did. Sometimes I told myself it was because they were busy, laughing too loudly to hear the hush in my voice. Other times I believed I must be too ordinary, too easy to forget, the background music in someone else's life. I remember one birthday, when the candles had burned out, and my wish was just to hear someone say, "I'm glad you're here. I'd notice if you weren't." But the room filled with talk of chores and plans, my presence melting into the wallpaper, invisible, unmissed. These small moments, stacked one upon another, became the lens through which I viewed myself. If no one notices, maybe I am not meant to be seen. I learned to shrink myself, to become helpful and pleasant, never too loud, never the source of anyone's trouble. I got good at guessing what people wanted, at offering support, at making sure everyone else felt heard, all the while wondering if anyone would ever return the favor, if anyone would ever search for me when I went silent. As I grew, this ache twisted itself into my beliefs, that my pain should be hidden, that loneliness is weakness, that attention is something earned, not freely given. Sometimes I wonder if I became invisible by design, if fading into the background was safer than risking being truly seen, with all my needs and flaws exposed. Safer, perhaps, than speaking up and being met with that same old silence. Yet, in my quietest moments, a voice inside protests. Why do you believe you must disappear to be loved? Why do you fear taking up space, longing for attention, needing someone to see you, really see you, not as a helper, not as a shadow, but as a person worthy of notice just for being alive? God, tonight I return to those childhood tables, to the birthday wishes and the crowded rooms where my heart ached to be found. I confess the ways I made myself small, the ways I accepted invisibility as my fate. And here is the twist I did not expect. Perhaps I am not as unseen as I feared. Perhaps in all those overlooked moments, your gaze was always steady, your love always attentive. Maybe the ache of being unnoticed is really the ache of longing for something even the most attentive people cannot provide. The holy reassurance that I matter, that I am chosen, that I am seen, not for what I do, but for who I am. Let me question my old beliefs tonight, God. Let me wonder if I am worthy of attention, not because I earn it, but because I am yours. Help me notice myself, my own longing, my own gifts, the quiet beauty of my presence in the world. And if I ever begin to disappear again, let your voice be the one that calls me back. I see you. You are here. You matter. Amen. Hiding the evidence. God, if I am honest, I have become an expert at hiding the evidence, not of crimes, but of wounds. It started so young. The first time someone glanced away, awkward or uncomfortable with my tears, I learned that pain makes others uneasy, that sadness is something to be swept aside, like crumbs on a dinner table before guests arrive. I remember that afternoon in school when I tripped and scraped my knee on the playground. I was 7. The blood surprised me.
But what hurt more was the embarrassed hush from the teacher. "Don't make a scene. You're fine. Get up." I bit back my cries, swallowed the sting, and later, when I washed the blood from my socks, I learned that pain should be erased, all evidence tidied away before anyone notices the mess. Since then, I've gotten so good at hiding the proof. I cover my tired eyes with concealer, pull my sleeves over the shiver of anxiety, change the subject when memories threaten to surface. When my voice trembles, I force a laugh. When my heart aches, I smile wider, fill the silence with jokes and helpfulness. There is a part of me that fears if I leave evidence out in the open, people will judge, pity, or recoil. Worse, maybe they'll simply ignore it, as if my hurt is invisible, as if my struggle never existed at all. So I've become my own cleanup crew. I sweep away the fragments of disappointment, tuck away the mess of grief, erase the fingerprints of failure and longing before anyone can see how raw and real it is inside me. But God, in my quieter moments, I wonder, what am I losing by hiding the evidence? If no one ever sees my wounds, can anyone ever offer comfort? If I erase every trace of my sorrow, do I erase the chance for someone to love me as I am? Sometimes I suspect this habit of tidying away pain is not strength, but fear. Fear of being too much, fear of being too real, fear of being met with indifference or discomfort. And here is the twist that startles me tonight. The more I hide the evidence, the more I lose touch with my own truth. It becomes harder to ask for help, harder to remember that it's okay to bleed, okay to ache, okay to leave a trace of my struggle in the open and still be worthy of kindness. God, I bring you the hidden evidence tonight, the invisible bruises, the stories scrubbed clean, the pain I packed away in boxes labeled not important or nobody needs to know. Help me unlearn this need to erase myself. Show me that being seen, evidence and all, is not shameful, but holy. That my brokenness is not a mess to be cleaned, but a space to be held and healed. Let me leave just one sign of my ache in the light, trusting that you see it without flinching, without looking away. And maybe, just maybe, if I stop hiding the evidence, someone gentle will come closer, not to fix, but simply to witness and care. Amen.
Secrets I swallowed to protect others. God, there is a heaviness that comes from holding secrets that were never meant to be carried alone. I have swallowed stories, bit back truths, held my breath and my tongue, all to shield others from shame, discomfort, or sadness. Sometimes I convinced myself it was noble, that keeping silent would keep the peace, that protecting someone else from pain was more important than tending to my own. I remember one night as a teenager, sitting on the edge of my bed, listening to voices arguing in the next room. The words hurled like knives, some meant for me, most for each other. And I made myself invisible, believing that if I just stayed silent, everything might calm down. I held my own pain in a tight fist, never telling anyone how afraid I was, how lonely I felt, carrying the weight of other people's storms. There were other secrets too, the ones whispered to me by friends with tearful eyes and trembling hands, the family stories glossed over at gatherings, the silent agreements that some things were not to be spoken of. I became the keeper of so many secrets that sometimes I lost track of which sorrows belonged to me and which belonged to others. Over time, this habit grew roots in my soul, a belief that my job was to absorb disappointment, anger, and hurt, and to smile and say, "It's okay, I'm fine," so that someone else could be spared the discomfort of truth. But the secrets built up.
layer upon layer, and no matter how deep I buried them, they pressed on my chest, squeezed my voice, left me feeling responsible for the happiness of everyone but myself. God, I wonder now, at what cost did I become the protector? Was it kindness, or was it fear? Fear that if I spoke honestly, the world would fracture, people would leave, or the image I had built would collapse. Sometimes I wish someone had told me that silence does not always save, that holding secrets can become a cage, and that loving others well does not mean abandoning myself. Here is the twist that stings. My silence did not always protect. Sometimes it simply left me isolated, carrying pain I was never meant to shoulder alone. Tonight, I laid down these secrets, not to blame, but to be honest. I am tired, God, tired of swallowing my truth, tired of confusing sacrifice with self-erasure. Teach me the courage to speak when silence is too heavy, the wisdom to know which burdens are mine to carry, and the humility to trust that real love can handle the truth. Let your mercy hold the secrets I release tonight. Let your compassion untangle my need to protect at my expense. And help me remember, I do not have to vanish inside my silence to be loved. Amen.
The shame I couldn't name. God, there is a kind of shame that is silent, that seeps in without warning, a shadow that clings to the soul without ever introducing itself. I don't always know when it started, only that somewhere in my childhood, a blush of embarrassment stuck to my skin and never quite washed off. Maybe it was the day my answer in class was wrong and laughter rippled across the room, or when I was called too sensitive, too quiet, too much, and felt myself shrinking in response, vowing never to let anyone see that side of me again. Some shame is loud, the kind that follows a big mistake, a failure that everyone saw. But this shame is quieter, more insidious. The feeling that I am wrong, not because of what I've done, but simply because of who I am. I carried it in small ways, avoiding the spotlights, hesitating to speak my mind, apologizing for taking up space. I learned to scan rooms for signs of disapproval, to read faces, to measure my worth by the reactions of others. Over time, the shame grew into a secret language, a set of rules that said, don't stand out, don't need too much, don't let them see you bleed. And so I didn't. I hid the parts of me that felt unlovable, the stories that didn't fit, the questions that seemed too risky. I tried to become small, acceptable, easy. But shame is hungry. The more I fed it with silence, the bigger it grew. And here is the twist, God. What I never understood was that shame cannot survive the light. It thrives in secrecy, in darkness, in isolation. But the moment I name it, the moment I confess, even in a whisper, its power begins to fade. Tonight, I bring you all the shame I couldn't name, the times I flushed red and looked away, the dreams I hid, the words I swallowed, the apologies I made for simply existing. Help me to believe that my worth is not up for debate, that my value is not determined by the harshness of others or the lies that shame has whispered. Shine your gentle light on the places I've kept in shadow. Let me hear your voice, not one of accusation, but of compassion. You are not your shame. You are mine,
You are enough. Let this be the beginning of freedom, God, the moment when I dare to name my shame and find at last that I am still loved. Amen.
Memories that visit at midnight. God, it is always at night, when the world is quiet and I am left alone with my thoughts, that the memories come back, uninvited, persistent, like distant thunder rolling in the dark. During the day, I can outrun them. I fill my hours with noise, with lists, with screens, with work and conversation, anything to keep my mind from wandering down old corridors. But at midnight, the walls I built all day crumble. In the silence, I hear echoes, the voice that cut too deep, the door that slammed, the regret I never confessed, the promise I could not keep. I see myself at different ages, the child hiding under covers, the teenager staring at the ceiling, the adult replaying old failures, old arguments, the faces of people I loved and lost, the wounds that never healed right. I wonder sometimes if time really does heal, or if it only teaches us to hide better, to pile new days on top of old pain until it sinks out of sight but never truly disappears. In these midnight hours, I am most honest, most raw, most aware of how the past can tighten its grip just when I think I am free. God, what do I do with memories that refuse to fade? How do I make peace with ghosts that have lived in me longer than some friendships or dreams? Part of me wants to push them away, to wish them silent. But another part, the braver part, wonders if these memories visit because they still need something, to be seen, to be named, to be grieved, to be offered up at last into your keeping. Here is the twist I never expected. Perhaps midnight is not a curse, but an invitation, a sacred space where I can stop running, turn and face what hurts, and finally bring my broken pieces to you. So tonight, God, I do not close the door on the past. I do not silence the memories. I let them visit. I sit with them and with you, trusting that even the darkest stories can be heard and held in mercy. Let my midnight become a meeting place, not of fear, but of gentle remembering, of honesty, and with time, of release. Stay with me here until morning comes. Amen.
The hurt that never fades. God, they say time heals all wounds, but there are aches that do not obey the clock. Years may pass, seasons change, faces come and go, but some hurts remain, lingering beneath the surface like a bruise that never fully disappears. Sometimes I wonder if I am doing something wrong, if I am too weak, too sensitive, too unwilling to let go. Why, when the world insists I should have moved on by now, does my heart still tighten at the sound of a name, the sight of an old street, the memory of a word spoken in anger? I remember the first time I realized some pain is permanent, how I waited for the day I'd wake up and find the sadness gone, how each sunrise brought hope for freedom, and each nightfall proved the wound still raw. It is exhausting, God, to carry the same grief through so many versions of myself. The child, the teenager, the adult, each hoping the next would be braver, more resilient, finally healed. But this ache has become a quiet companion, present in my laughter, in my choices, in the way I hold back, afraid that one wrong move will open the old wound again.
Sometimes I try to numb it, to bury it under busyness or distraction, to tell myself stories about forgiveness or forgetting. Other times I turn on myself, angry that I am not stronger, ashamed that I still care, that I still feel. But here is the twist I am learning, God. Some hurts never fade because they are part of the map of who I am. They remind me of my humanity, my need for comfort, my longing for meaning and connection. Perhaps the goal is not to erase the pain, but to carry it with tenderness, to let it teach me compassion, patience, humility. Tonight I bring you the ache that never left, the sorrow that shadows my brightest days, the longing that even time cannot dissolve. Help me to stop fighting myself, to stop judging my slow healing, to accept that this hurt is not a punishment, but a sign of a heart that has loved deeply and been wounded honestly. Teach me to hold my pain, not with fear or shame, but with gentle hands, trusting that you do the same. Let this lingering hurt draw me closer to your heart, where every wound is known and nothing is wasted. And if it never fades completely, let it at least make me kinder. Amen.
When forgiveness felt impossible. God, there have been days when the very word forgiveness felt impossible, a mountain too steep, a language I no longer understood. People say forgiveness sets you free, but how do you forgive what shattered you? How do you release the hand that let go when you needed it most? How do you soften the heart that learned to protect itself with anger, with silence, with walls thick as stone? I remember the moments I tried, late at night, praying for the strength to let go, telling myself to be bigger, braver, to rise above the hurt. But every time I reached for forgiveness, the wound seemed to open again. The memory replayed, the pain as sharp as the first day. Sometimes I thought refusing to forgive was my only protection, a way to keep the wound visible, to remind myself never to be hurt like that again. Holding on to anger felt powerful, felt righteous, felt like a shield. But the cost was heavy, God. The bitterness seeped into my laughter. The resentment colored even the happiest moments. I could not truly move forward, always glancing back at the weight I carried, the story I could not rewrite. Here is the twist that surprised me. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, or pretending the hurt never happened. It does not mean excusing what was wrong, or denying my right to feel wounded. Forgiveness, I am learning, is the slow, painful work of unclenching my fists, not for their sake, but for mine. It is allowing myself to step out of the prison of anger, to choose day by day, not to be defined by the worst thing that was done to me. Tonight, God, I confess that I am not there yet. Sometimes forgiveness still feels impossible, but I want to want it. I want to be free. Help me, God, to loosen my grip on the past, to begin the work of letting go, even if it takes 1,000 tries. Show me that forgiveness is not a finish line, but a journey, one step, one breath, one prayer at a time. Meet me in my struggle, be patient with my anger, gentle with my shame, faithful with my heart. And when I am ready, or even before, hold me close, reminding me that true freedom starts not in their change, but in my own. Amen.
What I needed but never received. God, there are needs so old, I cannot remember when I first began to hunger for them. Needs that grew in silence, in the empty spaces between words, in the longing glances toward people who never quite turned around. Sometimes I look back and wonder, what if someone had reached for my hand when I was frightened? What if, On the day my heart broke, someone had simply sat beside me, said, "You don't have to be strong right now. I'm here." What if the apology I waited for had come? If the words, "You matter," had been spoken when I needed them most? As a child, I needed gentleness, the kind that doesn't rush, that sees the tears and stays, that holds space for questions without easy answers. As I grew, I needed someone to believe in me, to see the goodness I doubted, to celebrate small victories, to say, "I'm proud of you," even when I was uncertain of myself. I needed forgiveness for mistakes, patience for slow healing, a home for my vulnerability. But so often, those things did not arrive. People were distracted, preoccupied, lost in their own storms. Sometimes they were simply unable to give what I asked, and sometimes they didn't know I was asking at all. I tried to fill the void in different ways, overachieving, pretending not to care, accepting less than I deserved, hoping that if I became useful enough, invisible enough, good enough, someone would finally notice, finally offer what I needed. But here is the twist that finds me tonight, God. The absence of these gifts hurt me, but it also taught me where to search. Over time, I have learned that people are not always able to give what I long for, that some needs must be tended within, nurtured not by the world, but by the quiet faith that I am loved, even when no one else shows up. Tonight, I bring you all that I needed but never received. The comfort, the praise, the safe place, the gentle word, the believing eyes. Help me to grieve what was missing, to let go of the expectation that others will always know, always provide. Teach me, God, to offer myself the gentleness I craved, the forgiveness I begged for, the patience I so desperately needed. And let your presence fill the spaces left empty, reminding me that nothing I needed was ever too small for your notice or too great for your love. May I learn, slowly, to be the answer to my own longing, and to trust that you are the one who never fails to come near. Amen.
The echo of harsh words. God, some wounds do not bleed. They echo, long after the moment has passed, long after the room has gone quiet. Sometimes it's just a sentence, a single phrase thrown carelessly or spoken in anger, but it lingers like a shadow I can't outrun. I remember exactly where I was when I first heard it, the tightening in my chest, the heat in my face, the way I wanted to disappear so I wouldn't have to hear my worth measured in cruelty. Even now, years later, the words replay in my mind. You're not enough. You're too sensitive. No one wants to hear you. Or worse, nothing at all. Just the cold, empty silence that followed when I most needed encouragement or kindness. I've learned to brace myself when people raise their voices, to scan sentences for hidden barbs, to replay old conversations, wondering if I could have responded differently, wondering if maybe the words were right, if maybe I truly am what they said. But here is the truth that aches, God. Words can be weapons or balm. A single harsh sentence can shape years of self-doubt, while a gentle one can heal in a moment. The echo of cruelty is so much louder in the darkness, and when I am most tired or lonely, those words find me again, whispering shame into the quiet places of my heart. Tonight, I bring you the echoes, every insult, every dismissal, every time I was called too much or not enough. I confessed how often I have let those words define me, how often I have repeated them to myself without realizing I was building a prison out of someone else's carelessness. But here is the twist I long to claim. I am not bound to every word spoken in anger or ignorance. I can choose, day by day, whose voice I allowed to echo in my heart. Teach me, God, to let your words grow louder than the old wounds, to hear beloved, to hear enough, to hear mine ringing truer than any insult or accusation. Help me to forgive those who spoke without care and to gently correct the voice inside me when it tries to repeat their harshness. Let your kindness be the new echo, soft, steady, unshakable, until it becomes the song I believe. Amen.
Lost in a crowd. God, it's a strange ache to stand among laughter and voices, to be close enough to feel the warmth of bodies beside me, and yet sense a deep, unbridgeable distance inside. I've been to gatherings, classrooms, parties, rooms so crowded the air feels heavy, and still felt invisible, lost in the sea of conversation, unanchored, untethered, like a single shadow drifting along the walls. I remember being young, watching circles of friends form and dissolve, always on the edges, always hoping for someone to notice, to reach out, to draw me in. Sometimes I would speak a little louder, laugh a little harder, wear a mask of ease and belonging that never quite fit. The loneliest moments I've found are not when I'm alone, but when I am unseen in a crowd, surrounded by people, yet untouched. The deepest parts of me unheard and unmet. I used to think something was wrong with me, that if I could just be more interesting, more outgoing, more likable, the emptiness would fade. But the more I chased approval, the more lost I became, drifting further from my own heart in the noise of everyone else's stories. Here is the twist I am learning, God. True belonging does not come from being surrounded, but from being known. And the first step is to risk knowing myself. Maybe the journey to connection begins when I am honest about what I feel. Even if I stand alone at first, even if my own voice is shaky and small. Tonight, I bring you my longing to belong, the ache of being lost in a crowd. Help me to stop looking for validation in empty places, to stop measuring my worth by how many people stand nearby. Draw me inward, God, toward the sacred company of your presence, toward the place where my soul can breathe and rest. Let me remember, I am never truly lost when I am with you, never truly alone when I am at peace with myself. And when I find my way back, help me offer genuine connection to others, to seek not just company, but understanding, not just noise, but true belonging. Amen. The mask I wear each day. God, there is a mask I reach for each morning, even before I open my eyes, a practiced expression, a way of being that feels safe in a world that does not always welcome what is raw and unfiltered. I learned early how to shape myself for others. At home, the helpful child. At school, the agreeable friend. At work, the reliable one. rarely showing the cracks beneath, rarely admitting when I am tired, uncertain, afraid. The mask has many faces, smiling when I feel empty, joking to hide pain, staying silent rather than risk being misunderstood. Each layer added not out of malice, but from an instinct for survival, a hope that if I seem perfect enough, easy enough, pleasant enough, I will be safe, I will be wanted, I will belong. But there are moments, especially in the quiet hours, when the mask feels too heavy to bear, when my face aches from smiling, my heart aches from hiding, and I long for someone to see past the performance to the soul beneath. I remember the first time I realized that not everyone wants the truth, that sometimes honesty makes people uncomfortable, that vulnerability is often met with silence or dismissal. So I tucked the real parts of me away, saved them for moments alone, or sometimes forgot them entirely beneath the weight of pretending. Here is the twist that finds me, God. The more I wear the mask, the more I risk forgetting the face you gave me. The world may applaud the mask, but only you love the real me, the one who is flawed, complex, still learning how to live honestly. Tonight, I bring you my mask, the careful words, the polite laughter, the well-rehearsed lines. I ask for the courage to set it down, if only for a little while, and to let you meet me as I am. Teach me to believe that I am enough without pretending, that the heart you crafted is worthy of being seen. Show me the freedom that comes not from impressing others, but from daring to be true. To you, to myself, to those who have earned my trust. And when the world feels unsafe for my real self, let your love be my hiding place, the place where no mask is needed and no part of me is too much or not enough. Amen.
No one ever asked if I was okay. God, there is a quiet longing that lives beneath the surface of my strength, a hope that just once, someone might pause and ask, "Are you really okay?" For so long, I have been the listener, the comforter, the steady hand for those who stumble. I have learned how to read sadness in another's eyes, how to show up, how to say all the right words to hold someone else's heart gently. But when it is my turn, when the storm is inside me, when I am the one trembling, there is only silence, or small talk, or the expectation that I will carry on, just as I always do. I remember sitting at crowded tables, smiling as others laughed, waiting for a gentle question to find its way to me. I remember answering, "I'm fine," even when I was anything but, hoping someone would notice the tremor in my voice, the way my shoulders slumped. But no one asked. No one pulled me aside. No one insisted on knowing what was really beneath the surface. And after a while, I stopped hoping. I wore my strength as a shield, telling myself it was better not to need, better to be useful, better to be invisible than to risk disappointment. Still, the longing lingers, the hope that someone, somewhere, might see past the mask and the role, might ask, "How are you?" truly, and mean it. Here is the twist that finds me tonight, God. Perhaps the question I most needed from others is one I must learn to ask myself. Perhaps healing begins not in being seen by the world, but in daring to turn my own compassion inward. Tonight, I bring you the ache of never being asked, the years of waiting, the silent prayers for someone to care enough to notice. Help me to care for myself with the same tenderness I have offered to others. Teach me to pause, to look in the mirror and ask, "Are you okay?" And then to listen gently to whatever answer comes.
And if, in the quiet, I discover sorrow, exhaustion, or longing, remind me that you see it all, that your gaze is never indifferent, that your presence is always attentive. Let me feel just for tonight what it is to be lovingly asked, to be seen, to be valued, not for what I do, but for who I am. Amen.
Faking laughter, hiding sorrow. God, there is an art to laughter that doesn't reach the eyes, to smiles practiced in the mirror, to jokes told to fill silence, to bright voices that mask the sound of a breaking heart. I have performed this art for so long, I sometimes forget what real joy feels like. I have learned to read a room, to become who people need, the encourager, the entertainer, the one who keeps things light, even when the weight inside me is nearly too much to bear. I remember holidays, birthdays, celebrations, surrounded by music and laughter, but carrying a sorrow that grew heavier each time I forced myself to join in. I told myself it was kindness, not to ruin the mood, not to worry others, not to let my darkness spill into their sunshine. But in truth, it was loneliness, the ache of having to hold my pain in secret so that everyone else could stay comfortable. Over time, I became skilled at hiding tears, at waiting for the shower, the night, the quiet car ride to let them fall. My laughter became a costume, my sadness a shadow that followed me everywhere, never allowed to step into the light. Here is the twist that comes, God. Sorrow is not the enemy of joy. Tears do not ruin laughter. They make it real, make it human. To pretend all is well is to live half a life, to miss the beauty in honest sadness, the comfort in being truly known. Tonight, I bring you my masked laughter, my hidden sorrow. I ask for the courage to be real, to let my tears mingle with my smiles, to trust that the people who love me most can handle the truth of my heart. Remind me, God, that I do not have to protect the world from my pain, that my sadness, when shared, can become a doorway to deeper connection, an invitation for gentleness, for empathy, for grace. Let me learn to honor my sorrow, to see it as proof of my feeling, my caring, my being alive. And when the urge to fake laughter comes again, let me pause, let me breathe, let me remember that in your presence, I am free to feel it all. Amen.
Invisible scars. God, some wounds never bleed. They heal without a mark the world can see, and yet they ache, quietly, long after the moment of pain has passed. I carry these invisible scars like secret tattoos, etched into memory, shaped by disappointment, carved by words that cut deep and vanished from the air long before their damage faded. There were times I wished for a visible injury, a broken arm, a bruise, anything to make the pain undeniable, to silence the voices that said, "You're overreacting. Just move on. It can't be that bad." Instead, I learned to patch myself together in private, to hold my broken pieces with trembling hands, hoping someday the ache would quiet. I remember moments in childhood, sitting alone on the playground after a harsh word, hugging my knees and wishing someone could see that a heart can break without a sound. As I grew, I met others with scars like mine, hidden, silent, beautifully strong in ways no one noticed. We learned to walk with a careful grace, to hide the winces, to smile through the soreness.
sometimes these invisible wounds make me feel like an imposter. If no one can see my pain, does it even count? Is it real? Am I allowed to need gentleness for something I can't show? But here is the twist, God. Scars, even invisible ones, are not proof of weakness, but survival. They are the map of every battle fought and endured, every hurt lived through, every time I got up and kept going when it would have been easier to give in. Tonight, I bring you my invisible scars, the quiet reminders of what I have overcome, the tenderness that sometimes surprises me, the places where I am still learning to be soft. Help me to see my scars not as shame, but as sacred, testament to my endurance, to the healing that is slow but real, to the story that continues even when the wound has faded from view. Let your love be the salve that soothes what still aches. And when I doubt the reality of my own pain, remind me that you see every hidden mark, hold every trembling hope, and honor the courage it takes to live with wounds the world cannot see. Amen.
Carrying the weight alone. God, there is a heaviness in my chest that no one else seems to notice. A burden I have learned to shoulder quietly, with steady hands and a silent resolve to not let anything fall apart. I remember all the times I waited for someone to ask, for someone to step in and say, "Let me help you carry that." But the help never came. Maybe it was because I made it look so easy, because my smile was convincing, because I said, "I've got this," even when I was desperate for relief. There were nights when I cried into my pillow, wishing for a comforting voice in the darkness, but all I heard was my own breathing, steady, determined, trying to convince myself I was strong enough, that needing help was a luxury I couldn't afford. Over time, carrying the weight alone became my way of life. I stopped expecting others to notice. I grew comfortable in the role of the reliable one, the fixer, the friend who never asks, but always gives. But there is a loneliness that grows in the silence of self-reliance, a quiet ache that wonders if anyone will ever see past my strength to the trembling that hides beneath. Here is the twist I am beginning to see, God. Strength is not found only in enduring, but in the courage to admit, this is too much for me. Real bravery is sometimes in letting go, in opening my hands to receive what I have always given so freely to others: help, comfort, understanding. Tonight, I bring you my stubborn independence, my fear of being a burden, my longing to be met in my weakness instead of admired for my endurance. Help me to trust that it is safe to need, safe to ask, safe to collapse into your arms when I am spent. Show me that letting others help does not mean I am failing. It means I am human, woven for connection, created to give and receive in turn. Teach me, God, to carry only what is mine and to lay down the rest at your feet, at the feet of those who truly love me. And when I am tempted to pick it all back up again, remind me that even you did not mean for me to carry every burden alone. Amen.
The exhaustion of pretending. God, there is a kind of tiredness that seeps into the bones, not from working late or waking early, but from carrying the mask of "I'm fine" for far too long. I remember days when every smile felt forced, when laughter was a carefully practiced sound that echoed hollow in my chest. Nights when I lay awake, cataloging every lie I'd told. Not the big ones, just the little reassurances that I was okay, that nothing hurt, that I could handle it all. I became so good at pretending
that sometimes I fooled even myself, pushing away the ache until it erupted as fatigue, anxiety, or a sudden flood of tears in the most unexpected moments. There's a certain pressure in always being the strong one, in knowing people depend on your composure. So I became hyper-vigilant, always scanning for ways to smooth over awkwardness, to deflect questions, to keep the peace. But the exhaustion caught up with me. No amount of sleep restored the energy lost to holding myself together. No amount of distraction erased the weight of keeping my struggles invisible. Here is the twist, God, that humbles me. Pretending robs me of the comfort I most crave. While I act invulnerable, I close the door to true understanding, to the gentle hands, the soft words, the healing that comes from being seen honestly. Tonight, I bring you my weariness, the fatigue of endless performance, the ache of not letting myself unravel, the longing to rest without fear of judgment. Teach me to value honesty over appearance, to trust that my realness is not a burden, but a bridge to deeper connection. Help me remember that in your presence, I do not need to pretend. You see through every mask, meet me in every weakness, offer rest that is real. Let my exhaustion become an invitation to lay down my act, to breathe, to let someone in, to believe that I am enough, not in spite of my brokenness, but because I am human and honestly alive. Amen.
Longing for a safe place to fall apart. God, there are days when the weight is simply too much, when my chest tightens, my thoughts spin, and I long for permission to collapse, to stop holding it all together for just a moment. I remember times in childhood when I fought back tears in crowded rooms, telling myself, "Be brave, don't cry here, not now." The message was everywhere. Be strong. Don't make a scene. There are people with bigger problems. So I learned to swallow my sorrow, to wait for the solitude of my bedroom or a silent night to let my guard down, if only for a little while. Even now, as an adult, I sometimes search for a safe harbor, a friend who will not shrink from my pain, a space where my shaking voice is met with kindness, a shoulder that says, "You don't have to be perfect here." But these places are rare. Too often, vulnerability is met with discomfort, with quick solutions or gentle avoidance, leaving me to patch myself up in the dark, whispering prayers that someone, anyone, will let me be as I am, messy, uncertain, unfinished. Yet here is the twist, God, that humbles and comforts me. You have always been the safe place I sought. In your presence, my tears are welcome. My trembling is not a burden, but a song of honesty that you receive with open arms. Tonight I bring you my longing for shelter, for understanding, for the freedom to fall apart without fear of abandonment. Help me to create a safe space within myself too, to offer myself the grace I so freely give to others, to learn that strength includes the courage to collapse, the wisdom to rest, the humility to need. Remind me, God, that my brokenness does not disqualify me from love, that in my most vulnerable moments, I am never alone. Let me find in you and in myself the safety I have spent a lifetime seeking. Amen.
The walls I built around my heart. God,
There was a time when my heart was wide open, soft as new grass, ready to welcome anyone with trust and hope. But pain has a way of teaching caution, of marking boundaries where none existed before. I remember the first betrayals, the careless words and the promises broken, how the sting of disappointment lingered long after the moment passed. I told myself, never again. So I began, quietly and carefully, to build walls, invisible at first, then sturdy, then nearly impenetrable. With every hurt, the bricks stacked higher, a smile that didn't reach the eyes, a secret kept, a goodbye without explanation, an affection withdrawn without warning. I learned to scan for danger, to hesitate before letting anyone get too close, to answer, "I'm fine," when my heart was begging for comfort. These walls kept me safe, protected me from the sharp edges of the world, but they also kept out the warmth, the gentle touch, the risk, and the gift of real connection. Over time, I began to mistake the walls for my own skin, to believe that distance was normal, that solitude was easier than vulnerability, that if I never let anyone in, I could never be hurt again. But here is the twist that finds me tonight, God. The same walls that shielded my wounds also blocked the love and healing I so desperately needed. True safety is not found in isolation, but in the courageous act of opening, even if my voice shakes, even if my hands tremble. Tonight, I bring you these walls, each brick etched with a memory of pain, each stone heavy with self-protection. Help me, God, to dismantle what I no longer need. Show me how to trust again, not blindly, but wisely, with the discernment that comes from healing, not fear. Let your love be the gentle force that softens the mortar, loosens the stones, and makes room for warmth to enter once more. And as I learn, slowly to lower my defenses, remind me that you meet me on both sides of the wall, that your presence is with me in my hiding and in my brave return to the world. Amen.
Fearing I'm too much to handle. God, there are days when I wonder if my feelings are just too much, too loud, too messy, too complicated for anyone to hold for long. I remember the looks, the sighs, the subtle withdrawal of people I cared about when my sadness stayed longer than welcome, when my anger spilled over, when my laughter was too wild, or my silence too deep. I have been told, sometimes with words, often with distance, that my needs are overwhelming, my stories too heavy, my wounds too raw, my longings too impossible. So I learned to ration myself, to edit what I share, to keep some feelings locked away, and present only the acceptable parts. I tried to shrink my dreams, soften my voice, tidy up my grief, all in hope that maybe this time someone would stay. But no matter how small I made myself, the ache never left. Loneliness grew in the space between what I felt and what I dared reveal. Here is the twist, God, that stirs in me tonight. Perhaps I am not too much.
Perhaps I have simply spent too long with people unwilling to hold what is real. Maybe my depth is not a flaw, but a gift, an ocean of empathy, a well of feeling that is meant to be honored, not tamed. Help me, God, to trust that I am not too much for you, that every storm inside me is met by the vastness of your love. Show me that I am worthy of someone who can stay, someone who sees my wildest joy and deepest ache and chooses not to run, but to draw nearer. Let me dare to take up space, to let my laughter echo, to let my tears fall, to let my voice rise and break and heal. Remind me that the fullness of my heart is not a burden, but a blessing, and that I am enough just as I am. Amen.
Blaming myself for hurting. God, sometimes the hardest voice to silence is the one inside my own head, the voice that whispers, if you were stronger, this wouldn't hurt so much. If you were wiser, you would have avoided the pain. If you were better, you'd have healed by now. I remember the moments after a disappointment, sitting with my aching heart, turning the hurt over and over until it felt like evidence of my own failure. Instead of comforting myself, I searched for the flaw in my character, the mistake that made me deserving of this ache. I've asked myself, why can't you just move on? Why do you let old wounds still bleed? There is shame sometimes in having feelings that linger. Shame in admitting that despite all the advice and hope, the pain has not simply vanished. Somewhere along the way, I learned to expect perfection from myself, to believe that hurting was a sign of weakness, that brokenness was a personal fault, not an inevitable part of being alive. But here is the twist that emerges as I pray. Pain is not a failure, and suffering is not a sign that I am unworthy of love or compassion. Every wound is a teacher, reminding me of my capacity to feel, to hope, to risk, to care. Tonight, God, I bring you all the blame I have placed upon my own heart, the guilt for not healing faster, the anger for still aching, the endless questions that start with, "What's wrong with me?" Help me to see myself with your eyes, eyes that do not judge me for hurting, but meet my pain with tenderness. Teach me the first step toward healing, to forgive myself for being human, for being soft, for needing time, for not always knowing the way. Let your mercy wash over my self-judgment. Let your gentleness quiet the accusing voice inside me. Remind me that healing is not a race, that some hurts take longer to mend, and that it is not a sin to feel what I feel. Tonight, I lay down my blame, not because the pain is gone, but because I am ready to be kind to myself. Amen.
The guilt of not healing fast enough. God, there is a peculiar ache that comes not only from the pain itself, but from the guilt of still carrying it long after everyone else has moved on. I remember conversations where someone said, "You should be over this by now," or "Time heals everything, just let it go." And I tried, God. I tried to set my grief aside, to smile like I used to return to the way things were before. But some wounds refuse to obey the calendar. Some losses carve deep, winding scars that resist every effort to hurry them along. And so I became impatient with my own sadness, frustrated with my tears, ashamed that the ache lingered, even as the world demanded I be whole again. I've compared my timeline to others,
wondered why their smiles returned faster, why their voices sounded lighter, why I am the one still lying awake at night, carrying questions that seem to have no end. Here is the twist you bring to my heart tonight. There is no shame in slow healing. Grief, loss, and recovery are not races to be won, but journeys uniquely my own. What takes a moment for some may take a season or even a lifetime for me. Help me, God, to honor my own rhythm, to resist the urge to judge my heart for needing more time, more care, more grace. Remind me that your patience is infinite, that you do not rush me, that in your presence I am free to go at my own pace. Teach me to tend my wounds gently, to let them heal as slowly as they need, without apology, without guilt. Tonight, I lay down the burden of urgency, the pressure to be better, faster, stronger. Let me breathe. Let me rest. Let me believe that I am enough, even as I am still mending. Amen.
Ashamed of my weakness. God, there are days when the thing I hide most is not my pain, but the trembling in my hands, the crack in my voice, the moments when I simply cannot pretend to be strong any longer. I remember the looks, the impatience, the sideways glances when my composure slipped, the jokes made at my expense, the voices, real and imagined, that said, "Don't be so dramatic," or "Stop being so sensitive," as if weakness was something shameful, something that made me less worthy of kindness or respect. So I learned to armor up, to bite my tongue, to hide the softness that is just as much a part of me as any strength I've ever shown. Each time I let my tears spill, a flush of shame followed, as if I had failed some unspoken test, as if being human was something to apologize for. But here is the twist you whisper in the quiet. Weakness is not the enemy of love. It is the doorway. Only when I let myself unravel can true comfort find me. Only when I admit I cannot do it all can real connection begin. I think of the times when a friend's honesty about their own pain became a balm for my heart. How their openness invited me to put down my mask, to rest, to heal, to trust. Perhaps what I have called weakness is really an invitation to let myself be held, to let someone else in, to let your tenderness meet me in the place I am most afraid to show. Tonight, God, I bring you my shame, my tired striving, my old belief that I must always be unbreakable. Teach me to see my fragility as sacred, my tears as holy, my need as a gift that opens me to your presence. Remind me that I am never more lovable than when I am honest, raw, and real. Let me be brave enough to let the world see all of me, not just the victories, but the valleys, not just the smiles, but the stumbles. And when shame tries to close the door again, let your love be the gentle hand that holds it open. Amen.
Struggling to forgive myself. God, of all the forgiveness I have tried to offer in my life, the hardest, by far, has been toward myself. There are memories I revisit like a wound that never quite closes. The harsh words I spoke in anger, the friend I let down, the moments when fear made me choose silence over honesty, the paths I took that led to someone else's pain. No matter how many times others say, "It's all right," I find myself holding on to the guilt, turning it over and over, as if suffering now might redeem the mistake then.
I remember lying awake, replaying old decisions, wishing for a way to go back and make it right, to choose gentleness, to offer understanding, to be a better friend, a braver soul, a kinder heart. But the past does not bend to regret. And so I live with the ache, the quiet question, am I worthy of forgiveness? Do I deserve mercy when I was the one who caused the hurt? I have told myself that forgiveness is for others, that I must pay the price for what I've done, that only when I have suffered enough will I be allowed to heal. But here is the twist, you whisper to my soul. Punishment is not the path to freedom. Self-forgiveness is not forgetting, but honoring my own humanity, acknowledging that I am a work in progress, that my broken places do not disqualify me from love. Tonight, I bring you my guilt, my regret, my reluctance to let go of the pain I believe I must carry. Help me, God, to see myself through your eyes, with gentleness, with patience, with the same compassion I would offer a wounded friend. Teach me to practice mercy toward myself, to name my failures honestly, but hold them lightly, to trust that grace is for me too. Let forgiveness become a doorway, not to erase the past, but to step into a future unburdened by shame. And if I falter in this journey, remind me again and again that you delight in setting captives free, even when the prison is of my own making. Amen.
God, hold my hidden hurts tonight. God, tonight, as the world quiets, and I am left alone with all that I have carried, every ache unspoken, every scar invisible, every story only you have heard, I come to you with my arms full of wounds I was too afraid to show, sorrows I tucked away, shames I could not name, and longings I tried to silence. You have seen it all, God, the ways I have hidden, the ways I have armored up, the times I have collapsed in secret because I did not trust that anyone could hold my pain and not turn away. I bring you the child in me who still waits to be chosen, the broken places where old words still echo, the memories that visit at midnight, and the loneliness that clings, even when I am surrounded. I bring you my efforts to heal, my impatience with slow progress, my longing to forgive myself, my longing to rest. Tonight, I ask for what I have always needed, what my heart has been whispering for years, that all of my hidden hurts would be safe with you. Let your hands be gentle as you gather them, your eyes kind as you see what I have so carefully concealed. Let your love wrap around every trembling hope, every tear that has yet to fall, every room inside me that still feels too dark for light. Remind me, God, that healing does not always mean forgetting, but allowing myself to be loved exactly as I am, with every scar, every bruise, every wild longing, and every unfinished story. Let me rest in the truth that you delight in all of me, that I am not too much, not too broken, not too late for hope. Tonight, as I breathe out all that I have hidden, teach me to trust your mercy more than my old fears. May I find in your presence a home for my deepest wounds, a place where nothing is too shameful to be held, nothing too heavy to be healed, nothing too lost to be redeemed.
And as sleep comes, let me rest, knowing I am safe, known, and, at last, loved. Amen.